Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Orange Pill Podcast. My name is Graham Elwood. Thank you for joining us on a wonderful Monday. It is February 19th. Max and Stacy are traveling today, and they had, of course, thanks to good old American air travel, their flight was crazy delayed, and this is what traveling in a collapsing empire looks like, guys. When you travel in America, as someone that's traveled a lot throughout the United States, there was a time when I was traveling like 100,000 miles a year as a stand-up comic, and it's only gotten worse, air travel. But we got a fantastic show for you. We're going to talk about an article at the cover of Bitcoin Magazine talking about free Julian Assange. We're going to talk about an Ethiopian green mining project being funded by China and all of the big fat money that's rolling into Bitcoin thanks to the ETF. And we might have a special guest joining us today. Ron Placone, who is a Bitcoiner, will be joining us today to talk on the show. And Ron is someone who we put together some cool scripts and stuff like that. And so like, share, and subscribe to @OrangePillPod, also @Graham Elwood. Smash the like button. And I see Glenn T in the chat. Thank you, Glenn, for posting. This is important information. Max and Stacy, nor myself, will never DM you, and will ever ask you to invest or pay for anything. That's the thing. If you're new to Bitcoin, and as we talked about last week with Max and Stacy, but we're going to repeat this over and over and over again. If you're new into Bitcoin and new into crypto, there's a lot of scams out there, and you're going to see all of these fake accounts. There's a bunch of fake Max and Stacy accounts. There's even a couple fake Graham accounts. I've had fans tell me that, hey, Graham, you reached out to me on WhatsApp and asked, wanted to give me investment advice. I'm never going to do that. So look out, be aware of the scams. There's a lot of people scamming out there. There's a lot of fake accounts. Any YouTuber that talks about Bitcoin or crypto, believe me, there's scammers out there. Fake accounts pop up on Instagram, on everything else, and they're taking advantage of the fact that there's a lot of new people in this space, and they're going to try to scam you out of your money. That's what they're doing. So be very leery of that. So that's what's going on. So, and hit the like button, like, share, and subscribe. All those free ways that you can support our show, and share it out on your social media helps. We really appreciate that. So this is one of the reasons why I'm down here in El Salvador. We're in the beautiful Orange Pill Studios in downtown San Salvador, the capital of El Salvador, which is the capital of Bitcoin. We are in Bitcoin country. And there's a new place that just opened up in El Tunco, a pizza place. If you're ever in El Tunco, so El Zonte, that's Bitcoin Beach, where just about every place accepts Bitcoin in El Zonte. I don't think I found a place that doesn't. In fact, there's even vegan pupusas you can get there. The surf shops, all of them in El Zonte, which is great. But the whole point of President Bukele making Bitcoin legal tender is spreading adoption. And so El Tunco, which is about 15, 20 minutes away from El Zonte, it's another little beach town. It's another great little surf town. I love it. And they don't have as much Bitcoin adoption, but that's changing. There's a little market in El Tunco, and I saw some street vendors accepting Bitcoin. And there's this pizza place that accepts Bitcoin, which was really cool. And then and let's also go to swanbitcoin.com, Orange Pill. When you're in El Tunco, there's a couple little restaurants starting to take it. There's a gym that I work out at in El Tunco, Vibes Wellness House, that takes Bitcoin for your monthly membership, which is great. And the guys that run the gym are kind of new to Bitcoin, and I'm helping them learn about it, which is really cool. And if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, go to mepremierbitcoin.org, I believe. And they have some PDFs that you can download and read. They're in Spanish and English if you're new to Bitcoin. So just get as knowledgeable as you can and be careful of the scams. Be careful of the scams. And of course, you can support the show by going to hitting the dollar icon button, the super chat button, and you can support the show. And those questions I will absolutely ask. I will try to. I can't answer all the questions in the chat, obviously, but if you do that, we can answer that question. And it's really it's exciting living in this country because there's like, I was just talking to Ron, who's going to be on the show, about the hope that is in this country. This is it right here, Glenn. Me Premier Bitcoin.io/my-first-Bitcoin, where you can download their information. They're basically, Me Premier Bitcoin is a non-for-profit, an NGO that is educating El Salvadorians primarily on what Bitcoin is, and to get kids, they're getting it into schools and they're having classes, and it's really fantastic. They're helping just really light a fire under adoption in this country. And so, but you can use this model. This is the thing I say, like the circular economy that they started in El Zonte. It's something you can start wherever you live. You're seeing these Bitcoin bubbles pop up all over the world. Really, it's really cool. You're seeing it pop all over the world. I mean, you're literally in Costa Rica, in Guatemala, in the Philippines, in Africa. I mean, you're just seeing it pop up all over in Brazil, in Mexico. And, you know, that was the cool thing of going to these Bitcoin, the Adopting Bitcoin Conference and the Pacific Bitcoin Conference, which is run by Swan, is meeting people from all these different parts of the world who are helping these circular economies. So but basically what a circular economy is you just get everybody in that little town or neighborhood to start doing it. Let's say you have your favorite coffee shop and you go to them and say, why don't you guys start accepting Bitcoin, and show them how to do it if you're a Bitcoiner, right? And then you go to the restaurant across the street and you say, why don't you guys start doing it? And then the shoe store, then the clothing store, then the Thai restaurant, then the sandwich shop, then and all of a sudden, like, that little street, has everyone starting to take Bitcoin. And when the word gets out, Bitcoiners, we all like to go to places that are doing adoption. And I think it's critical to try to have more adoption in like the first world countries to get the US in it. But part of it is the US doesn't need it. It's more important in developing countries where people don't have access to traditional banking. That's the thing. That's one of the things I like about Bitcoin is the fact that there's roughly 2.5 billion people in the world that are unbanked. They don't have access to traditional banking. So they're sort of left out of first world economies, but they all have a smartphone. And then with that, that's how you can get into Bitcoin, which is one of the things that's cool. Here's Pacific Bitcoin tickets. If you want to buy for the next conference, it's in Santa Monica. I went last year. It was awesome. It was beautiful. It was really well run, 2-day event. I think they had a couple of other events on either end of it too. Just October in Santa Monica is perfect weather. It was just gorgeous, really well run conference. And I helped run the Los Angeles Podcast Festival with my friends Dave Anthony and Chris Mancini. We ran that for 6 years, and so I know what goes into running big live events with multiple stages and cameras and AV and different guests and a whole panel of shows. And I know how complicated that is, and having volunteers and paid staff. And I know, like, there's 1,000 moving parts to something like that. So to see when it's well run, I'm like, wow, you guys really know what you're doing. So yeah, that's cool. Can you tell Bukele to open direct flights to Bangkok or at least Singapore? Yeah, that's not up to Bukele. That's up to the airlines. That's the presidents of countries don't really have a lot of say in that. I mean, it's really reach out to your favorite airline and say, like, I wish United Airlines had a nonstop from San Salvador to Honolulu. That's just me. That's my surfer agenda. But they do have nonstops to LA. I think out of San Salvador, there's numerous airlines. United comes in. American Airlines comes in for sure. And then there's Avianca, which I think is, I forget, it's a Latin American airline, but they have flights to a bunch of American cities and flights all throughout Latin America, which is great. Scam emails start the day. So, all right. Swan, let me double check that. Let me make sure that that's correct. Swan. Yep, swanbitcoin.com/orange-pill. So swanbitcoin.com/orange-pill is where if you sign up for Swan, you get a free, using that affiliate code, you get a free $10 in Bitcoin, right? Isn't that cool? And you're supporting our show. Oh, this is great. Flightconnections.com. Thank you, Glenn T. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. Glenn, I think we're going to make you... Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, cheap flights. Avianca almost booked one for $65 yesterday. Avianca is great too if you want to hop around. And Avianca has direct flights from LA, from I think either Houston or Dallas. They have direct flights from Florida, but a lot of great direct flights within, like this, to San Salvador, to, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think like Bogota. I mean, Avianca is pretty good with that. Folks, all right, let's bring in our guest, ladies and gentlemen. He hosts the podcast 1000. He used to formerly host Get Your News On with Ron. He's a good friend of mine. And I orange pilled this gentleman. I've forcibly orange pilled this gentleman. So it's very fitting that we have him on the Orange Pill podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Ron Placone.
I mean, hi, Graham. Orange, I mean, it's not like it's a one-time thing. Really, it's a way of life.
Yes.
It's a journey.
It is. Actually, that's fair. That is fair. It is a journey because Bitcoin is like one of those things, you learn about it at first and you kind of get a grasp of it. And then you keep learning more and more and more about it, especially when you have a buddy like me who won't shut up about it. So then it's
just happens to be a little interested in it.
I don't know if you look at, I don't know why you think I'm way interested in it. I'm just on a set that says Orange Pill. Like I'm doing a podcast whose soul has one theme and it's Bitcoin. I just spit. So this is all we're talking about morning, noon, and night on this show. This is what I literally moved to I moved to El Salvador so I could just talk about Bitcoin with people who also just want to talk about Bitcoin all the time.
Dude, I mean, that's pretty cool that there's just like that specific of a lane. There's actually a place that you can go. And for you, it also has surfing.
Oh,
so that's like all kinds of wins.
This is the perfect place for me. I mean, literally, I'm in such you coined it when I came down here. You're like, yeah, how's Bitcoin Disneyland? And that's what this is. This is Bitcoin Disneyland, and there's surfing. It's so great. Like I'm tan. I was snorkeling Saturday. I was surfing yesterday. It's just gorgeous, man. Like I was meditating on the beach this morning. It's so great.
It's raining here, actually. It's raining in LA today.
When it rains,
everybody's in a great mood, though. Yeah. Everyone's happy here. Everything's fine. There's nothing to worry about. but it did rain. Which is
LA
okay because we collect all the water, so we're doing great.
Sure.
We collect it right.
No, LA is this like dynamic, exciting city, and then when it rains, it becomes a third world country. Like it just becomes just a floating nightmare.
They shut everything down. Like everything. It's like when I moved to Los Angeles, I thought, well, it'll be cool. I'm gonna live in a place where there's no snow, so like it won't impede my day to day. But basically, LA's equivalent of a snow day is it rained. So it really is the same thing. Like it is. It rains and we're done. It's over.
Can you imagine if LA actually got a snowstorm? Like people would go insane.
It would end. It would be like The Last of Us. It would literally the entire city would just go up in flames, and it would just be a total dog eat dog whatever, which is basically what it is now, except there's still taxes. But it would really just go full throttle into that. And then, and nobody would come check on us. They would just leave us. They'd be like, I heard LA's a freaking just dead zone. And they're like, yeah, we knew that. No, literally, like it's a freaking dead zone. People won't notice until they're not getting their fruits and vegetables anymore, and nothing is coming out on Netflix. Then they'll be like, is something wrong with LA? I feel like something's up. I feel like something bad might have happened.
How long do you think it would take before Angelinos resorted to cannibalism if there was a snowstorm?
Dude, like 2.5 days. There would just be like one person who goes, it's actually way more health conscious than a burger, and it'd be on. Everyone would just be, let's eat people. They don't give a shit.
It would just be like, my Pilates teacher said eating human flesh is actually really good for you. So it's amazing. We're all doing it now. And people would be like, all right, I guess I'm eating my neighbor. That's cool.
There's actually an entire diet based on it. And it really is. I mean, you're basically cleansing your body with other bodies. Okay. You do it for 30 days. Then you stop.
Oh. Yeah, no, I've heard about this. The 30-day cannibal cleanse. I heard about this.
Yeah. I mean, the alliteration really sells it. 30-day.
And there'd just be Instagram influencers doing like cannibal cleanse. Like everyone would just be, it'd just be automatic. LA within like 40 hours, 50 hours, between 40 and 50 hours, people would be eating each other. It'd be great. So somebody asked the chat, what would the vegan equivalent be to the Impossible Human Burger?
It'd be a vegan person. It would just be a person that was vegan.
Person. Yeah, Trader Joe's would come out with
this person vegan,
a plant-based cannibalism.
Yeah. Was this person vegan? It's like that episode of Portlandia where they're asking if the chicken had a good life. It'd be like, was this person vegan? Like, yeah, it says so on the packaging. This was a vegan person. So guilt-free consumption.
So if your neighbor was vegan and you ate the vegan, then you would be a vegan cannibal? Is that
still vegan? Yeah,
well,
still vegan.
Well, then I would probably people would be wanting to eat me.
You're vegan flex in that case. It's like, well, I'm vegan except for humans. Like, oh, I know a lot of people that do that diet. Great protein substitute. It's all the trend in LA. Or there's the 80-20 version where you're vegan 80% of the time, 20% of the time you eat people jerky. So that's also it's also a good option.
No, the people jerky at Whole Foods is really amazing. It's amazing. Like it's farm to table people jerky. It's really good.
I like the fact that they let you grind it yourself. And if you bring a reusable jar, you save 25 cents, which is fantastic. I mean, say what you want about that guy, but he's making the world a better place.
That's how insane LA is. LA would go this nuts on killing and murdering and eating other people, but they would feel like I'm doing the right thing. Like it's the people driving the hybrid to their private jet, like kind of a thing or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Or my favorite is being flipped off in traffic by someone in a Prius with a coexist sticker on their bumper sticker. That's my favorite. LA. That's my favorite LA thing right there. That sums up LA all in one. Like, I drive a Prius, so I'm better than you. I have coexists, which is really it's those kind of hippie types bragging that they're like more enlightened than you, but then they flip you off in traffic because they're, at the end of the day, they're just rage-filled psychos who are just barely hanging on.
Dude, this one time I got flipped off at traffic. This is actually like a fun flipped off at traffic story. I saw the van for Epitaph Records, which is a fantastic independent label based in Los Angeles. And I had only been in LA for a few months, so I was all excited. It's the Epitaph van, right? So I honked to the guy and yeah, I love your music. And the guy thought I was being impatient, so he flipped me off. So then later I tweeted at them and I was like, hey man, one of your drivers flipped me off. I wasn't trying to be impatient. I'm a big fan. And I was trying to say, hey. And they tweeted me back and they go, oh, sorry about that. And don't mind him. He can only see out of one eye. It was a fun interaction,
Well, that's a great exchange. That's a great exchange.
It was fun.
I
just got finished eating a creamy peanut butter sandwich, by the way, before you recruited me to be orange pilled.
This is one of the distinct problems I have with Ron Placone is he is a creamy peanut butter apologist. I think creamy peanut butter is a waste of everyone's time. I think you should be eating crunchy peanut butter, and I don't understand creamy peanut butter. It is an affront to me.
But you're fine with smoothies. Smoothies it is the same thing. That's like the creamy peanut butter of fruit, and you're fine with that. I mean, I'm fine with both. I also like crunchy peanut butter. It'd be hard for me to find a peanut butter I don't like.
Creamy peanut butter is still great. I mean, for sure, peanut butter is good.
Now you're waffling.
Well, you
were militant that it wasn't okay to be fine with both. Now you're like, actually, it is great. I put it in my smoothie. Didn't want to tell you.
Sometimes, and this is only because if Costco they don't sell the organic, no sugar added, all natural, chunky peanut butter. Sometimes they only sell the creamy, so I'm forced to get it. I'm forced to go down your rabbit hole of lies, Ron Placone, and put creamy peanut butter in my smoothies. So I hope you're happy. That's my point here.
You can also make your own. I mean, you can start with creamy peanut butter and then you can add stuff that you like. I've done that before. Like I like flaxseed sometimes in peanut butter, so I can add it myself. I have the perfect amount.
Okay, now this is like Ron's bragging that he puts flaxseed into his creamy peanut butter.
It's very rare, but it has happened. I mean, we're talking like one time where and then I ordered a chef's hat like right after. I was like, this is a big moment for me. It's like
sounds to me like you accidentally, like you had the peanut butter jar open and were like moving the flaxseed bag and it like spilled and
it just spilled.
Might as well eat it.
And I was like, what a beautiful mistake. This is like
it's the like hippie version of a Reese's peanut butter cup. Like, you got your flaxseed in my peanut butter. No, you got your peanut butter in my flaxseed.
Yeah.
And then
no, that is one of the cool things about creamy peanut butter, though. You could just like basically take it and then put whatever else you want in it. You can't do that as easy with crunchy peanut butter. Like if I just want an awesome protein-filled bite of granola and peanut butter, it's easier to start with creamy peanut butter and just like throw some granola up in there, mash it up, and just put it in my face. That's like
you live in an insane world, Ron Placone, and I'm not
not really. Tons of people do that.
You could put granola on crunchy. This is the dumbest argument I've ever had in my entire life, by the way. This is so stupid. I can't keep this going. Everyone in the chat's weighing in on their peanut butter tastes. See what you've done, Ron. All right. Well, I think we got to switch gears. Do a hard pivot here.
We can pivot, man.
That's the beautiful thing of doing a podcast is you can do hard pivots. And that's what I love about this show. Like Max and I have like riffed and then gone into a serious conversation about the Federal Reserve and then back to a riff. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the Orange Pill Podcast. My name is Graham Elwood. We're joined here by Ron Placone from the 1000 Podcast, which is a great show. Please check it out. I'm a huge Bitcoiner, and Ron, you've become a Bitcoiner. And one of the things that I like about the Bitcoin community, and it's a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life, but there's kind of some consistent through lines, which is freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And what is being discussed a lot online, especially in our sort of circles of activists and stuff like that, everyone's talking about Julian Assange. He's, as well they should be, because some new like legislation or whatever, like some new things have changed, it sounds like, or they're trying to not extradite him. And I think the Australian government has come forward in his defense, finally. But one of the things I think that draws people to Bitcoin, regardless of your background, socioeconomic, political, is the freedom that it gives, right? It gives you out of the corrupt central bank system. And if you're a student of WikiLeaks, I think, was one of the early adopters of Bitcoin because they were stopping the funding. People would donate to WikiLeaks, and the US State Department and the central banks like basically formed a cyber wall around it. Where they couldn't collect any money, they started using Bitcoin, I think back in 2012 or 13 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So Julian Assange was one of the early adopters of Bitcoin and saw the power of Bitcoin. And so this just, I saw this on Bitcoin Magazine's Twitter feed today. So they put free Assange, and they put this on the cover of their magazine, the Gatekeepers issue. And this is pretty significant, man. This is pretty cool. This is that a magazine whose sole purpose is to just talk about Bitcoin and the power of Bitcoin. But one of the things that has drawn me to Bitcoin is that it can fix so many problems. You can't financially censor people if we're all using Bitcoin. And Assange is a really good example in that. I'll pull this down so we can,
keep trying.
I just pressed every button I could find on StreamYard. Because the history of some people might not know this. So when this is how the central bank, specifically the IMF, flex their muscle on behalf of the United States, the Pentagon and the State Department, is when Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and Ecuador was protecting him, and the US and the UK were trying to arrest him. So one of the things that they did to get him out of that embassy is they said, hey, the IMF went to Ecuador and said, hey, we're going to give you $500 million, a $500 million, loan, but you better give up Assange. And initially the Ecuadorian president, I think, was like, nah, we're going to still give up Assange. And they're like, okay, we're going to pull that money away. And then Ecuador acquiesced. And so that's one of the ways that they got Assange, who is a political prisoner, for doing nothing more than publishing information that was given to him about how the United States is committing war crimes and killed journalists and innocent people in Iraq and Afghanistan under the Bush administration and the Obama administration. And that's how they flex their muscle. So this is a reason why I think a lot of Bitcoiners, when they learn about the central banks and how corrupt they are, and if they know anything about Julian Assange, they go, oh, this is again why the ruling elites and the central banks and the countries, the nation states, don't like Bitcoin, because they are going to lose their, Liz Warren has come right out and said, we can't sanction countries if everyone's using Bitcoin. Like, she just said it out loud. So, Ron, how do you see this? Obviously, you're very familiar with the Assange case and what is happening right now. And how do you see, not only, first of all, just tell us like what you see about the current situation with Assange, but also how you think Bitcoin could potentially, I don't know that we can draw the line that Bitcoin could get him free, but could Bitcoin in the future help avoid more whistleblower journalists like Assange from being illegally imprisoned?
There's a lot of elements going on there, man. Well, so
Yes.
first of all, with the Assange case, I mean, as of us streaming this right now, the date is February 19th. Tomorrow, February 20th, and then I believe 2 days, the 20th and the 21st, is when he is going to appeal being sent to the U.S. That's where the case is right now. They have ruled that he can be sent to the United States. If he is sent to the United States, that's the worst possible thing that could happen. He's in a terrible situation already in London. Like the conditions are terrible. However, it would be even worse if he were to be sent to the United States. In fact, they even ruled that prior. I mean, at one point, the court ruled, obviously they put it in more flowery words, but they basically said that would be too barbaric to send this guy to the United States. Like, that's basically what they said. Rome has made him an honorary citizen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Rome has made him an honorary citizen, which is really cool. There have been protests all throughout London. Someone in the chat pointed that out. There's also some journalists from all over the world. I know Kevin Gustola, I believe, is out there now from The Dissenter, here, based here in the U.S. So there's journalists from all over that are out there that are going to be covering it on the ground tomorrow from London. So this is sort of the very pivotal moment. And there's a huge sense of urgency, because if they say he can go to the United States and they send him there, that's wow. I mean, like there's no chance he will get anything resembling a fair trial, because all the entire setup of it all is just complete nonsense. And we can't unpack every single element right now. It would take too long, but it's based on just speculation and nonsense. And it's based on their star witness, by the way, to bring finance into this in general. Their quote unquote star witness, who was a mole for the FBI, who is a convicted sex offender, and who recently admitted that they lied about everything. I'm going to mispronounce the name, but Sigurdur Thordarson from Iceland. Again, I'm probably butchering the name, but that guy lied about everything, admitted it, is a known embezzler. He was embezzling money from WikiLeaks. So, you know, had they been, you know, more on the blockchain, presumably, yeah, some of that could have been prevented, certainly. I don't know how something like Bitcoin could prevent future things like this from happening, because these are just, you know, political exercises. You know, and so that's funny. Woke Pope. That
Alex Levy. Thank you, Alex, for supporting the show. Rome made Assange an honorary citizen. Woke Pope strikes again.
I don't know if the Pope said anything about it or not. That's actually a good question. I'm not sure of that, but well, hey, whatever the motivation was, I'll take it.
It's great, but I mean, just to be clear, there's no way Rome made a decision without the Pope weighing in.
Right.
Like, if the Pope didn't want to do this, I doubt Rome would have done it. So just
probably, yeah.
That's my guess.
So yeah, but I mean that's where the Assange case is. I mean, it's in a very, very dire situation right now, because again, and his health is. I mean, he had a stroke not too long ago. You know, his health is fading. He could. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that he could at some point have brain damage, you know, just because human beings aren't supposed to be in isolation that much. Like, it's just not healthy. It's not okay. And
they're trying to kill him in
prison.
They're
trying to kill him. And it's already been made clear, like, they had assassination plans against him. And it's so like, not, I almost said hilarious. That's probably the wrong way to put it, but it's just so incredibly just absurd how in the United States there's people that are still, Julian Assange helped Trump, which isn't true. But also it was revealed that Trump was part of the, like, they were trying to assassinate him. But like, oh yeah, they're so buddy. Trump was trying to kill the guy. You know, I mean it's just so absurd. That
is so easily debunked. For starters, like, go to WikiLeaks and see the, like, dozens,
Thousands.
thousands of
There's
posts
yeah.
of stuff revealing Trump's corruption.
Yeah.
Like, because WikiLeaks doesn't, if they get information and it's verified, they put it out there. It's that simple. It's not like this notion that like, WikiLeaks just has secret access to everybody's files, and they've numerous ties to Trump, numerous ties to Putin. Like, they've called out scams within Putin and oligarchs and big Russian corporations and the Clintons. Like, WikiLeaks just shows how they're all in bed together. they're all awful people, and people just, this just reeks of the Clinton crybaby loser machine of every time they lose, it's somebody else's fault. So blame Assange, blame Putin. Oh, he's in bed with Trump. And again, Americans are just fed nonsense and propaganda on the regular media and on social media. So if an American just hears some little clip thing and they just go, oh, Assange, he worked with Putin and Trump, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They're just regurgitating some nonsense that was fed to them by, CIA algorithm or whatever. Anyway, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, and we are, you and I have stayed on this beat for many years, as have other people, in this space, which is very important because no one else is. I mean, the corporate media in the US, there was one moment where they had a little bit of pause where I don't know if it was Chris Hayes or who it was, but journalist, quote unquote, in the corporate media had a moment of pause where they kind of had a brief millisecond where they thought maybe this isn't good. But that was very, very short lived.
Yeah.
And then it was back to repeating, the nonsense propaganda about this guy. And it's in many ways, it is a remarkable thing to live through because you are witnessing, like, yeah, they're trying to kill this guy. And the only, quote, crime he committed was he published things that powerful people did not want seen. That's all. Like, that's all he did. He didn't even obtain it himself. Someone else gave it to him. But they're gonna make an example of him.
Like, what they're doing to Assange, we've talked about this numerous times, but it bears repeating because he's still in prison and a bunch of journalists are not. I mean, Tucker Carlson kind of mentioned it, like Assange once, but that's it. Like, Chris Hayes kind of mentioned it. Tucker Carlson said, oh yeah, but this should be 24/7 news cycle. But this just shows you that the media is corporate media and it's been co-opted by the powerful and the ruling elites, and they and the State Department all working together. They don't want this getting out because the things they're jailing Assange for, they should have put Ben Bradley but have been put in prison, for what the Wall Street or what the Washington Post put out in the 70s. I mean, like the Pentagon Papers, like the Watergate. I mean, that's what the kind of journalism that this country used to pride itself on is like, but the corporation saw it when you had, the news department divisions were separate and didn't have to earn a profit, meaning they didn't have to have good ratings. Then the corporations bought up all the news outlets. So there's now 4, maybe 5 multinational conglomerates that own 95% of all media, including entertainment media.
Right.
So then they just make this very easy to just shut down. And journalists, they're paid well. And there's the self-censorship that happens when you're paid really well. And you just kind of know, if I bring this up, I'm going to get some pushback. So I don't want to bring that up. So I want to keep the paychecks coming in. Like, that's part of what happens. And then there's the direct censorship of, you can't talk about that. Your producer gets in your ear and says, nope, kills the story or whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. And yeah, we're just going through all of this in real time. And by the way, you mentioned, like, journalists of this country used to pride itself on. I mean, some of the stuff that he published that people are saying was just so objectionable. I mean, The Guardian published the same stuff. And people are just like, well, wait a second. How is it I mean, it's not objective. It should have been published everywhere. Like it's stuff people have the right to know. But it's just like, well, wait, how can you, persecute this person? Like it is beyond beyond absurd. I mean, when you look at just the entire court case and just it's so absurd. And their whole premise is nonsense. I mean, it's just based on a lie because just publishing documents is not a crime.
No.
So they're trying to make it out like he hacked something. They have no evidence of that. Years have gone by. There's no evidence that that happened. They tortured Chelsea Manning to try to get a confession out of her. She didn't give one, because it's not true. I mean, if somebody helped me hack something and you tortured me for 6 years, I'd probably confess.
Yeah.
If that was true, Well, so, I mean, it's just so beyond absurd. And just knowing that it can happen is just so frightening. And it also shows the overarching just power of the United States.
Speaking of which, I just put on the screen here a tweet from Edward Snowden. Another, you brought up the Guardian. This is back when the Guardian was still like doing journalism, when Edward Snowden revealed how the NSA is like tracking all of us. And that, again, happened under Obama, and Obama didn't go, oh, yeah, we got to do the right thing. Obama went after him. And Obama put Chelsea Manning in jail. Obama made Edward Snowden have to flee. And this is the thing, Edward Snowden, if you look on the screen here, unpopular but true, Bitcoin is the most significant monetary advance since the creation of coinage. If you don't believe me or don't get it, I don't have time to try to convince you. Sorry. I put that up there not just because, hey, this is a Bitcoin show, but Edward Snowden completely understands how not just, obviously he's going to get the technical stuff of Bitcoin quite well because Snowden is like a tech genius and he worked in the NSA, but he understands why it's a threat to those in power. So that's why Edward Snowden is also pro Bitcoin. And this is why, again, Snowden has been targeted. He's had to live in Russia for 15 years now or whatever. Chelsea Manning, as you said, was put in prison and tortured. We torture whistleblowers, and all of those arguments of like, I always say this too. There's no, I mean, you're right. There's no evidence that Julian Assange told Chelsea Manning to hack the computers or whatever. But my thing is this. If the evidence shows you're guilty, the evidence shows you're guilty. It's like if I broke into someone's house and found stolen merchandise or whatever, some big illegal thing, you had old videotapes of some illegal act that was committed, and I broke into this person's house and got the videotapes to show actually you committed these awful crimes. Are we really going to get mad at me for breaking and entering?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? When I have evidence of an egregious crime. So to me, and you're right, there is no evidence. But even if Assange did this, I don't care how he acquired the evidence.
Right.
The evidence shows how evil the United States war machine is. And it doesn't matter that it was under Bush or Obama or Trump or Biden. It doesn't matter. They're all war criminals. They all spend, hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer money that could be building infrastructure in schools and Medicare for all. And if we could have high-speed rail coast to coast and all this other stuff on this endless war. And Assange showed this.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's punished.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, from a moral standpoint, you're 100% right on. Unfortunately, in the eyes of the law, that's how they're able to have these charges against him. Like if he hacks something, that is technically illegal. However, going on what you said, though, and, full disclaimer, I am not a lawyer, but to my understanding, when something like this happens and the person doing it is acting in the public interest, it should be treated. And this was the situation with Snowden. And this is what Snowden brought up for himself. It should be treated as a political offense. They never treated Snowden, for instance, as a political offense. That's why, like, whenever people say to him, why don't you come home? Like, why don't you come home and face the music? He always says, well, I just want a fair song. Because he knows like the way they're going to bring the charges against him, it's not going to be accurate or fair in any way. Julian Assange going through the exact same thing. And the other thing that really muddies the water even further with Julian Assange, they treat him like a United States citizen when it's convenient for them.
Yeah.
But then when it's not, when he should have certain rights, they go, oh, well, he's not even a United States citizen. It's like, this is ridiculous. You guys play that card when it helps you and ignore it when it could hurt you. And I don't see how anybody just can't see how absurd this is. I think anyone who's really looked into it has. I think a lot of people, I mean, I've talked to just people in my personal life where I've completely flipped them on Assange. Like the topic will come up and they'll just repeat. And it's not like they're bad people. They just heard BS about it and just figured that BS was the full story. And then you're going, no, actually, here's what's really going on. And you kind of break it down and they look into it and they're like, wow, yeah, I feel differently about this issue now because I didn't know this, you know? So.
Yeah. And that's, you see how powerful the propaganda machine is when we have friends of ours who are smart people. I have very smart, intelligent friends, but they say stuff to me and I go, oh, wow. I just say to myself, that's how powerful this propaganda machine is.
Yeah.
Like they haven't taken the time, because you know this from doing your old show, Get Your News On with Ron, and me doing Political Vigilante. We had to spend a lot of time sifting through the nonsense of corporate media and finding news sources that we were hoping, we're trying to believe were valid, that were indie media sources that were outside. It's hard. It's a lot of work to do. It's not easy to find, to go to places like Mint Press News or whatever these, Last American Vagabond or these outlets. I mean, even, and you see the Department of Justice, I used to get a lot of news from RT. Mm-hmm. I used to watch Max Kaiser on RT. I used to watch Lee Camp's show. You and I were both regulars on Peter Lavelle's show, Crosstalk. And I would watch Boom Bust. I'd get my financial advice from RT. They shut that down because it could hurt the narrative coming out of the Pentagon and the White House.
It was an American bureau run by Americans. It was RT America. And all of a sudden, the United States decided that they were going to bring back the FARA Act, which is it's one of those pieces of legislation that was written at a certain time in history that was applicable to that moment that really has no place today. And it was written, I believe its origins were to try to stop Nazi spies and things like that. But now it can be interpreted to basically shut down any news source that isn't domestic. So they imposed the FARA Act, but for some reason they only went after Russian outlets and Chinese outlets. Right. BBC America wasn't a problem. None of that was a problem. It was just Russian and Chinese outlets that they went after. Again, we watch that unfold in real time. We all lived through the past 7 or 8 years where, people who seemed like intelligent people truly believed that people like Larry King and Ed Schultz were spies for the Russian government. It's just absurd. It's McCarthyism on speed. Yeah. And we've been living through it. And what's even more scary is those were the more laid back times compared to right frickin' now. There are times where I'm like, man, I really wish the carefree days of 2017 where people just told me with a straight face that they thought colleagues of mine were Russian spies. I miss those more simpler times. It's even more insane now. And it is. It's just.
Remember the good old days when we could just go on RT America and some of our friends would call us sellouts to Russia and we could just
as they went on MSNBC.
Yeah, as they went on.
Why would you go on an outlet like that? I'm going on CNN. I'll see you later. Why don't you? What that outlet is? Why would you go on media financed by a government when you could go on media financed by corporations? That's so much better.
Yeah, and make no mistake, if the UK decided to shift its allegiance and say, look, we want to end the war in Ukraine, so we're going to kind of help that war end and kind of give Russia what it wants, which is no NATO bases in Ukraine, and stop the war. And Russia agreed to that and pulled out. And Russia got it's part of Ukraine that it wants. And Zelensky was like, yeah, I don't want any more Western interference. we would then turn, the United States State Department would turn on the BBC and Brits, and we'd be like, they're the new enemy. They would suddenly just paint them as enemies if they sided with Russia or China. If they saw the writing on the wall, went, well, the US dollar is about to collapse. America's been printing itself into oblivion, money printing, and its economy's collapsing. The BRICS countries are undermining America on a daily basis. We're going to jump ship and go and get out of the collapsing American empire. America, as it was collapsing, would be like, would be, no, we're going to outlaw soccer, or would just go, would go stupid nuts and could ban the BBC. That's the thing. If America just changes its allegiance, we've done this throughout history. I mean, it's a famous quote from Malcolm X. He said, look at World War II. Russia and China were our allies. And in all the movies and TV shows, Russia and China were our allies in World War II. World War II ends a couple years after World War II. Suddenly, Russia and China are the bad guys. They were allies of convenience. Saddam Hussein, well, we loved him when he was, when the CIA was funding him in the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s. And then he said, I'm going off the petrodollar. And suddenly we didn't like his dictatorship. He was a fine dictator when he was on our side. I mean, that's America's hypocrisy. Anyway, I could talk about that for hours, but
it's really hard being the world's bully. It's just hard to keep track of it all. Who are you supposed to?
Who are we?
Who are your friends and foes this week?
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Orange Pill Podcast. I want to shift gears to some positive news here that is happening. Let me bring this up here. So one of the things that happens in Bitcoin is people who don't understand it, say it's bad for the environment. And Bitcoin has now answered to that. And I think what happened was Bitcoin mining takes a lot of energy. There's no two ways about it. And Bitcoiners who are like solution-oriented problem solvers, especially the people, the core developer types and the miners, like a lot of smart tech and finance people, have done several things. They've found where there's wasted energy at a power plant that just is being wasted, and they attach Bitcoin mining operations to it to utilize wasted energy. And then they've created a lot of green energy. Like there's a project that's being set up here in El Salvador that's Volcano Energy that is using green energy for Bitcoin mining. And there's these green energy projects all over the place. I did a story on my other show, Political Vigilante, about the Navajo reservation in America using solar power to run Bitcoin mining. So there's a new project here. And again, as we were just talking about, America's just so hell-bent on China as the evil enemy and all this stuff. And this is like, and people say, yeah, but China's done this and this. I'm like, I'm not saying there aren't legit criticisms of China, but China is not even close to the awful stuff that America's doing. And one of the things that China's doing that America could be doing, it's actually spending money in the Silk Road Initiative to get allies. We go get allies by sanctions and war and destroying societies. China comes in and says, we'll build you a port, we'll build you a stadium, we'll build you they built a library here in El Salvador. It's state of the art, one of the most amazing libraries in the world now. And sure, China has people go, yeah, but they got strings attached. Of course they do. If I invested in your project or you invested in my project, there's strings attached. You expect something for your investment. But what would you want? And an investor saying, we're going to give you a bunch of money to build up your country's infrastructure, or we're going to bomb the ever-living snot out of you and ruin your generations and kill people. Like, what would you take? Yeah, give me the money and I'll take whatever deal you got. So this is
clearly one is better than the other.
Yes.
In comparison, it's
yes.
like, I mean, there is no like, all total altruistic good guy of the world. That doesn't exist. All of the world's superpowers have an element of bad about them. However, there are different levels of bad.
And look, it's the hilariousness of American hypocrisy of this country, America, that is the most capitalist place ever. Is like, boy, China's just giving these countries money because they want profit in return. Like, that's all America does. Like, with everything, with schools, we put people in jail for smoking a plant. Like, what? What are you talking about? Suddenly, China's just trying to make a profit, and America isn't. But this is again in Bitcoin Magazine Pro. The Ethiopian government is set to enter a partnership with companies from China to establish powerful new Bitcoin mining infrastructure in the country, all centered around a massive hydroelectric dam. So that's another thing that I've seen Bitcoin mining projects do. When I was at Adopting Bitcoin conference here in El Salvador in November, I was part of this Bitcoin Film Fest. And there was somebody that had a documentary of all of these Bitcoin mining projects going to pre-existing hydroelectric dams that generate a lot of energy. Dams, people think dams are to generate electricity. Most dams are for water management, and you can then use the water management to generate electricity, right? So they again found these dams where there's excess energy being used that no one is using, that's not going into the power grid that they're attaching mining to. And so this is what China's doing. I mean, what would you rather have America do, Ron? Do stuff like this in Ethiopia, or sanction and bomb and back some horrible dictator just because he's going to let your, oil companies go in there and wreak havoc? I mean, like, what would you rather have?
Yeah, the choice is obvious. And yeah, when you see stuff like this, because, when it comes to Bitcoin in general, I'm not, I'm not where you're at.
Sure.
But I'm also not, you hear people on the total other end that just, and, people that are completely dismissive, excuse me. I don't get it, because I'm like, how can you look at, stuff like the blockchain and all these different advancements and say there's nothing good in this? There's nothing valuable in this. Like I just don't get it. There's so much. And so when you bring it to the environmental space, when people say that, like, oh, well, it takes up a lot of energy. And I'm like, yeah, I don't dispute that. But at least they're being proactive about it. Can you say the same thing about Wall Street? And for, I mean, and for a long time, you couldn't. Now, in the finance space, there are ways you can divest your investments from fossil fuels. Like there are like kind of investment portfolios that are doing that now. But the reason I think part of the reason they're doing that is because cryptocurrencies first started to try to green their processes. Like they did it first, and then you saw, the traditional finance market, however you want to put it, then you saw them kind of follow. Because all that being said, there's still like horrific fossil fuel investments that go on every freaking day.
Well, you bring up a great point, and again, it's sort of, this is how it's the same thing we were talking about with Assange. It's the same propaganda tactic that, like, I think a lot of the central banks and people and politicians that are going to lose their people like Liz Warren and a lot of American politicians in both parties that are like, we're going to lose our power, we can't sanction people. It's the same thing. They just hear something like Bitcoin's bad for the environment. Yeah. And they go, oh, I read Liz Warren's tweet, so it must be bad for the environment, without just doing some basic logical extrapolations of like, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy. Yes, it does. Do you want to add up just amount of energy that ATMs use? Do you want to just total that one up, right? Just off the, right now, like what ATMs and brick and mortar banks use? And you brought up Wall Street, how much energy Wall Street just uses in terms of their physical infrastructure. Not to mention the other thing you brought up, which is Wall Street is backing the petrodollar and coal and natural gas and all these things that are horrible for the planet. Where Bitcoin, this is the thing I love about it, it's adaptive. It goes, oh yes, these mining rigs, which are basically just hard drives. And so, they're going to take up, like, if we were to pack this room full of Bitcoin mining things, be basically a bunch of hard drives running 24/7, it would use 5 to 10 times the amount of energy that we're using right now just to run this show. That's a lot. That's absolutely a lot. But then Bitcoiners go, well, how do we fix that? What do we do? Let's put solar panels on it, because that's part of it, is what's built into the equation. This is why whomever created Bitcoin was a genius. The biggest cost in mining is the energy. So if you can get your energy cost down, your mining profit goes up, right? Mm-hmm. So a bunch of tech people and finance people are going to go, how do we do this? Let's figure this out. And that's the thing about tech people, just sit down, they see a problem, and they go, how do we solve it? They don't sit there and go, I read Liz Warren's tweet. I'm dumb. Julian Assange helped Trump. Like they just don't scream. They actually go looking for evidence and data and solutions, which is the thing I like about the space. Is it's like everyone wants to find solutions rather than just scream online because they read the tweet of a corrupt politician.
Well, because it's still relatively new. I mean, it's been around a while, but in the big scheme of things, it is still new. So there's a certain proactivity that is in this space that just doesn't exist in a lot of the other ones. And so when they point a finger, it's just like, yeah, that's a valid critique, but look at the other structures we have. They are certainly no better. And no one really has a response for that. It's just like, well, cryptocurrency. Okay, well, look at Wall Street though. Like, aren't that? Well, yeah, but it's like, okay, so what's your answer then? Like, are you just gonna like go? I mean, so I hear you.
It's nuts. Shifting gears here to I want to talk about this. Just as before we wrap up here, let's do this. So the Bitcoin price, welcome everybody to the Orange Pill Podcast. My name is Graham Elwood, guest hosting here for Max and Stacy, who are traveling. And I'm here with Ron Placone from the 1000 podcast. And thank you to everybody who's watching on the chat. You can support what we're doing by hitting the super chat button and ask a question. Also like, share, subscribe. We are at Orange Pill Pod. Wherever you're watching this, we're multicasting on my YouTube channel and on Orange Pill's YouTube channel and on the Orange Pill Twitter. So if you're following one of those, follow all the other ones. I'm at Graham Elwood. So Ron, you've been, you and I got into like crypto around the same time when we both started having shows on Rockfin, which paid us in their cryptocurrency. And through that, we both started learning about Bitcoin. I've obviously gone full orange, but you follow the price, and we're now, today it popped over 52,000. A year ago, Bitcoin was at 19,000. It was still coming off of the scam of the FTX Sam Bankman-Fried thing in November of 22. So it was at 19,000, and look what it's gone from 19 to 52,000 in a year. That's what Bitcoin can do. And one of the reasons for that is the Bitcoin ETF. And this is a pretty powerful thing. And this is why when people like friends of mine or friends of ours who don't understand Bitcoin at all, and they're like, oh, Graham, you're just some nutbag YouTuber that's talking about your crazy digital currency. I'm like, don't listen to me. Listen to this. This is from Bitcoin Magazine. BlackRock and Fidelity now own a combined 203,000 worth of Bitcoin, which is they own 203,609 full Bitcoins, according to this, which is worth over $10.6 billion for their spot Bitcoin ETF. So what the ETF thing is, and we've talked about it numerous times. I talked about it with Max Kaiser on my other show and on this show. The ETF, in my opinion, is an inferior product. It's basically a certificate that you own Bitcoin rather than, it'd be like, do you want to own actual gold coins or do you want to own certificates that say you own gold coins? That's what an ETF is. I think it's better to just buy Bitcoin on an exchange, pull it off the exchange, put it on a cold wallet. That's just my opinion. And a lot of people agree with me. But what the ETF is doing is it's making it easy for consumers who, there's all these portfolio managers out there that are managing several $1 trillion in people's assets, just going, hey, we can just take 5% or 2.5% to 3% of your portfolio and put it into these Bitcoin ETFs. And people go, yeah, okay, so that's where all this money is flooding in, and that's why the price is going up, which a lot of people predict more of these ETF money is going to come in, which is going to create FOMO, fear of missing out, and it's going to drive the price up to 100,000 or more. So Ron, as someone who's like obviously not as avid as I am, but you pay attention, like You are paying attention to this. How do you see this? Because I like, I talk to all these people, obviously, that are like super into this and know all the details, but I like hearing people that are sort of like, you own Bitcoin, you know what it is.
You know a little bit, but you're not,
Yes.
you can't necessarily speak the language, but you pick up some of it.
Yes. You know
Yeah.
more than someone that doesn't know anything about it.
It's very kind. Thank you.
No,
Can I put that testimonial on my website?
I say
I'm
that.
not going to mention Bitcoin. I'm just going to say in general, you know more than someone who knows nothing. Graham Elwood about Ron Placone. Thanks, buddy.
That's my endorsement of you. Use that as a quote, Ron. Put that on your website.
I appreciate it, pal. Thank you.
No, because I really, as I get more and more into this space and being in El Salvador and going to these conferences, I'm really seeing, like, in my friend group, I'm the guy that knows the most about Bitcoin. When I'm here, I'm the guy that knows the least about Bitcoin. So, there's just like, when I do the show and talk with Max, I learned so much. He's so knowledgeable about finance and the history of finance. So, but I love, because somebody who doesn't know anything about it, you could actually explain it to them and make them understand it in simplistic ways. How do you see all of this as somebody that's sort of paying attention a little bit of this from the sidelines?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you explained it was very digestible for like a regular person. Like, okay, so they're putting this money into it. People like having someone in the know managing things for them.
Right.
So that happens in the traditional finance space. So it would be, as this space continues to grow, it's bound to happen in the crypto space as well. So then, the FOMO happens and more stuff gets into this, which drives the price up, which for people who have Bitcoin, myself being one of them, that's a good thing. We like to hear that. That sounds awesome. As someone who has a remedial understanding of it, but a bit of an understanding of it, one of the things I see in the bigger scheme of things is a lot of the vilifications of crypto, especially when it comes from the government, comes from frustrations about not being able to have as much control as they want to. That's what a lot of this goes into. And a lot of these pieces of policy, I'm not, like super, super fluent in crypto the way you are. But I am very astute when it comes to digital rights. And those two issues intersect because often when you see the crackdowns or the attempted crackdowns on crypto, there are some serious privacy concerns that go along with it. And one of those pieces of legislation Liz Warren was a part of, and you and I talked about it at the time because I wanted to make sure it was on your radar. And I said, you really got to amplify this in the crypto space because this is dangerous to the crypto community, and it's also dangerous to the digital rights community, which should be everybody who's on the internet, So I see those connections, and I also see. I remember the thing that really annoyed me the most, as far as the crypto negging, was when Bill Maher did a segment on crypto, and his big grievance was basically he didn't understand it. And I remember just watching that. I'm like, so you just don't get how it works? So it just sucks for everyone then because you don't get it.
It's one of those beautiful Maher moments that, thank God, this is when I do love the internet, is because and he's so snide, and rather than go, gee, I just don't know a lot about this, so I want to learn more. It's like there's a thing from like 15 years ago where he's like, these new smartphones, are they really smart? And it's just like, wow, you sound like a dumb. Oh God. Nice. He's the guy that literally, 20 years from now, he's going to be like the guy that was like the Wright brothers and their little flying bird thing. Really? Well, that, these four guys from Liverpool, I mean, it sounds like cats dying. Like he's just going to be wrong, like colossally wrong.
That guy has been around all through history. And they've always been annoying. That guy's always been the wheel. Come on, my feet don't look like a wheel.
Yeah, and a lot of them, they're not just some guy in a bar stool. They had big influences at the time. I mean, they're these huge. I mean, watch the movie Imagine, right? where they're doing, and John Lennon has some huge journalist critic guy come in, and he's all like, you hippies, and he's this real notable guy. Do you remember his name?
No.
Of course not. No
Yeah.
one does. You
Yeah.
remember John Lennon's name. That's why. Like, I always say this all the time. Like, that's my favorite thing is to do that or go, tell me the name of the biggest jazz critic when Miles Davis and those guys were creating bebop, and people go, no. I go, neither do I. No one does. Who cares? Yeah. Like 20 years from now, Bill Maher is going to be some like, oh, wasn't he that old dude that was always wrong about everything? Or just like, he's just like, no one's going to remember him.
Isn't he the guy that didn't want to pay his writers?
Yeah, like that's the guy who didn't want to pay his writers during the strike. Oh, that guy. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a great thing when people were, there's a website, I think it's called 99 Bitcoin Deaths. And it just plays articles throughout Bitcoin's history since its inception in 2009, when it's like, Bitcoin, went to $1 and then collapsed to 30 cents, and Bitcoin goes to $100 and then collapsed to $50. And it just shows how every time there's a big price pullback, everyone's like, this is it for Bitcoin. It's a scam. And it's like, there's an article that was circulating that'll come out every once in a while in the New York Times, an op-ed piece in the New York Times in the year 2000. So not 1950, in the year 2000, saying the internet's a fad and probably isn't going to last.
I was thinking of that one. I was like, well, remember all those like internet's a fad thing that was never going to, I mean, they thought when like the Palm Pre's came out, which led to eventually the iPhone, people thought that was going to be a fad. No one's going to want that. Who's going to buy that? And you see what happened, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it's like, I see those trends. You and I, because of a situation that we were just in the right place at the right time for, we have seen firsthand, one of the, I would say, among the most positive uses, for this type of technology. Like we have seen what it can do in the creative space. It has a lot of positive uses to compensate creatives and to help us, make what we do a sustainable venture. And when you look at what Spotify is doing, for instance, I mean, this would be, the blockchain is definitely a way to fight back, because then there is an e-trail essentially of this is what this content is actually generating. So it's just clearly a better way to do things. Now, like for every situation like that, or are there some situations where it didn't play out in certain circumstances? I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, you and I have seen firsthand, like a positive element of this. Again, that's why, when people say, oh, that there's just no redeeming value in this, I'm just, well, then I guess I've been dreaming for the past like 7 years. Someone should wake me up. I guess I imagined, so it's like, we know, it's like, no, clearly there's some, there's definitely some positive uses, clearly. So yeah, as somebody who, I don't know if you would call me a dabbler or just sort of, fell into the space somewhat. I mean, those are the things that I see. And there are intersections with areas where I am, much more of an enthusiast.
Are you? And yeah, I think that's the main thing I'm really trying to advocate for and help create, is some type of, like you say, where, artists get paid, and somebody downloads our thing, all of our wallets are attached and it's on the blockchain. So if somebody downloads your new comedy album for whatever, $10, you get this, you see the transaction on your phone. You go, oh, I just got $7.50 and, boom, 750 and this, and my producer got 50 cents, and everyone's wallet is attached. It's all transparent. I mean, that's the thing I said when I was walking the picket line this summer for the SAG and writer's strike, was like, I've said this and I'm going to keep saying this. I was walking the picket line with a bunch of actors and writers and directors who are all huge Bitcoin advocates. They just didn't know it yet. So that's one of the things, like, again, why I'm super bullish on Bitcoin. It's not just the ETF and the big money management with their trillions of dollars in assets coming in. Obviously, that's a very good reason, but I think it's going to transform our industry for the better, so that artists aren't like, as I've said, I've got 2 movies on Amazon that they keep telling me they haven't made any money. And I go, well, how do you know that? Oh, because we told you. Oh,
Right.
oh, thanks. Like, there's a series that I did, the strip on Cram on the Game Show Network. Game Show Network is owned by Sony. I was literally walked the picket line outside of Sony this summer because they've been rerunning my game show for the last 2 years, almost 3 years now. I haven't gotten a penny.
Yeah.
It was a union show. It was before SAG and AFTRA merged. Quick history lesson: SAG was the film union, AFTRA was the TV union. Now they've merged into SAG-AFTRA. So I can excuse a little bit of like, oh, maybe some paperwork was lost before the unions, but I'm not getting a penny. They're rerunning the show. Someone's getting paid. They're making ad dollars off of that. They're licensing that show to these various platforms like Pluto TV and places like that. I'm not getting a penny. I'm the host of the show. I'm in 90% of the shots. The writers aren't getting a nickel. They wrote all this stuff. I improvised a lot. So one of the reasons I was hired was my comedic improbability skills.
All right, Graham. Don't downplay your writers. Don't. No,
I'm not
just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know you weren't. I'm just messing with you.
No, the writers need to get paid as well, is my point. Everyone needs to get paid. And so the moment we can create a platform where blockchain and Bitcoin is attached to this and everyone's wallets are attached, there's nothing to hide anymore. So that's why I'm excited about this. Any last parting thoughts on, I mean, Ron, I know you, like you say, you don't follow it as much as I am and others are, but as someone that's sort of a passive Bitcoiner, how do you feel about this year of 2024?
Well, to sort of tie it into like based on what you just said, to kind of make it just sort of an overarching thematic thing that I think anyone could grasp, even if this is your first day hearing about Bitcoin existing. I doubt that's the case for anyone watching this, but you get the idea. You can't apply an old model to new technology.
Right.
And that's, I mean, we are both in show business, and that's a very prime example. So we've been using it a lot, but you can apply it to almost any industry. You can't apply an old model to new technology, and the technology is here and it's not going anywhere, so using our space as an example, again, we are living in an age of content. That's just where we're at. We're not going to go back. People aren't going to start buying DVDs again or anything like that. Like we are living in an age of digital content. That's just the way it is. So you can't really apply the old models to that unless you're cool with screwing people over. And guess what? The powers that be are really cool with screwing the artists over. They're fine with that. So, we need a type of technology that's going to be held to account and is going to meet the moment. And that's the potential that something like the blockchain provides. Mm-hmm. Could it be mishandled? Certainly. Could it be an amazing step into the future? Abso-freaking-lutely. And I'd like to, play my role and hoping it's the latter and trying to make it the latter.
Awesome. Well, Ron, where can people follow you online?
You can follow me online. I'm at Ron Placone on all social media. RonPlacone.com is my website. My movie is screening around. If you want to see my movie, which I'd love it if you did, it's going to be in Tucson this week, February 22nd. It'll be in Omaha, February 29th. March 18th, it'll be in DC. March 22nd, I'll be in Pittsburgh doing a show, screening the movie, doing a Q&A. April 14th, Graham, you're going to be on a show with me. We're going to screen the movie, which, by the way, Graham's in the movie. He's hilarious. He does an amazing job. And then we'll be doing a Q&A after. That's April 14th in Los Angeles. And then June 8th in Idlewild, California, we're going to do a show screening and Q&A up in the mountains. So, ronplacone.com for all info.
Yeah, watch it. I play a right-wing YouTuber. You're going to love it.
It's great. Yeah, your role was great. You got a ton of laughs at the premiere, and it's a really fun movie. It's loosely based on the GameStop incident that happened in 2021, but it's a fictional story and it's a comedy. And I think a lot of Bitcoin people would, given that theme, would like the movie. So please check it out.
It's very subversive and disruptive and in a good sense. So I think Bitcoiners will love it. Ron, thank you so much, man, for taking time to come join us on the show. And hopefully we'll have you back on soon. And maybe someday you come down to El Salvador.
Thanks, Graham. I look forward to that.
All right, dude.
Seeing you,
Later.
buddy. Peace.
Ron Placone, everybody, joining our show. That's our show, everybody. Thank you so much. A lot of good questions. Annabelle Corley's in the chat. Hello. Hello, everybody. Blaze Silver Wolf is popping in. I know it's like tough for Blaze Silver Wolf, and Holly Horn. I think they work during the day to be moderators. So thank you, everybody, for watching the show. Tomorrow, same time, 3 o'clock Central Time, which is El Salvador time, 4 o'clock in the East Coast, 1 o'clock is the Minister of Education in El Salvador is going to be on the show. And let me see. That is tomorrow. Yes. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock Central Time, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 o'clock Pacific Time tomorrow, Tuesday, which is February 20th. So we will have the Minister of Education talking about how Bitcoin is being implemented in all of the schools of El Salvador. It's going to be an amazing conversation. You really want to tune in for that tomorrow. And of course, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock Pacific Time, 4 o'clock Eastern, we will do government secrets. And then Orange Pill will be again at the same time, which is usually we always do at 3 o'clock El Salvador time, 4 o'clock on the East Coast, 1 o'clock Pacific time. On Wednesday, we will have a woman, Reina Chicas from My Premier Bitcoin, which is an educational, like a school that's a non-for-profit that educates El Salvadorians and kids and all that stuff. So really cool slate of shows. Like, share, subscribe. Follow me. I'm at Graham Elwood. Go to grahamelwood.com and also follow at Orange Pill Pod and the Orange Pill YouTube channel and all of that. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Ron Placone. And we will see you tomorrow, 3 o'clock Central Time from San Salvador. Muchas gracias.